This week, we're discussing Sony at CES and Xbox's hot start to 2023. This is the Good Game Bad Game podcast.
This is a song I wrote about the Good Game Bad Game podcast. Good Game Bad Game podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Game Bad Game podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and with me is a man who is now more confused than ever as to whether or not he is to place his PS5 upside down or right side up. It's my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
45-degree angle is key.
Yeah, that's got to be it at this point.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want to get too into that whole thing, but I'll say confusing report came out about potential hardware issue with the PS5 that if you have it standing vertically, which is what they say that no matter what you choose, they say either vertical or horizontal is fine. I think from a space standpoint, most people probably have to put it vertical, but maybe not. But apparently it could potentially cause some issue because of, I don't know, something with the
They're using liquid metal as a processor coolant.
okay.
So the paste that goes in between the processor and the heatsink for the processor, instead of using like Arctic silver, which is a paste, they're apparently using liquid metal.
Okay.
Very, very strange. I'm I'd be shocked if it like sure. I know like people probably hear liquid and want to freak out, but I doubt they used. I don't think that the liquid metal coolant that they use is um, electrically conductive.
Hmm.
So like it can get on your board. I think don't like go and dump this on your board because I said it won't short it, but I don't think it'll short any components.
Okay.
But obviously, like the less coolant you have on your processor, the worse. The worse that it's going to be for the processor. So yeah, oh,
Well,
very strange conundrum.
I can say with my from my own experience, and I only know my own experience. I saw that and I went, "What?" And then thought about how many hours my PS5 has run, and I've yet to have any issues with it. So fingers crossed that I'm not about to hit like some magical threshold where you know this now starts to impact me.
Like all video game consoles have it. That built-in fatality that in time will show.
Remember the GameCube screw?
I remember the GameCube screw.
Good times. Good times. Uh yeah. So if you want to see more about that, if you're worried about it, I don't remember who originally was reporting on it, but I'm sure
It
if you
wasn't.
search PS5 liquid metal, you'll find it and you can read up more on it and see whether or not it's something that you need to freak out about.
Somebody called that out like a long time ago, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. I'll report back. I'll report back if I have any issues, but
Yeah, I'd kind of be shocked if this were actually a big issue, but
yeah. As long as my PS5 doesn't sound like a fucking jet engine like the PS4 did, I'm happy. So
well, you think about it this way: if coolant is getting to more parts of the PS5,
that's a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah, all right. I like it. I like the positive spin. Um, all right. What have you been up to? Tell me about your weekend games.
Ooh,
Ooh.
I think my Series X has been like officially off for over a month now.
Oh,
Yeah, weird, huh?
I didn't know you got a PS5.
Yeah, and PSVR too.
Nice.
So it's all I've been playing is PSVR 2. Um, we're winding down. Wow, our next episode, Stadia will definitely by the time it comes out. I don't know if it'll be by when we're recording, but Stadia will be no longer.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Good thing I've got a long weekend to keep playing games. Um, didn't have a ton of. Well, I guess I had time. I don't know. I was basically knocked out from being sick for the past week, so you would think that you would play video games when you're sick and you can't do anything else, but I was so sick that I did nothing but sleep.
Yeah.
Um, but this past weekend, when I was starting to feel a little bit better, I kept working my way through some Stadia games, um, trying some of the ones that are at this point Stadia exclusives that their future is in question about whether or not it's going to be ported.
Hmm.
The first one I played, which I might have, I can't remember if I brought this up on the podcast last week that I was going to play, is Pixel Junk Raiders, which is kind of like a Star Wars ripoff roguelike.
Okay.
Um, it's it's fine. It was rated pretty poorly just for being repetitive, and I could definitely see that. Like, it's one of those things where I played for a couple of hours, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. Like, I'm gonna I actually did move on to another game, and figured maybe I'll come back to this. We'll see. Um, but you're basically like going level to level, and it's all like near like close quarters combat. Like, you
Hmm.
can get different swords and stuff that have different powers, and they all only last a certain amount of hits before they break. And your goal is basically just to go like planet to planet and rescue these. I don't even know what you would call them. They're like aliens that are being attacked. You're basically killing the attackers and then saving these other aliens, and that's the game. It plays really well. It's fun. It's just I don't know. It's kind of mindless.
Hmm.
Um, I played a little bit of that, and then I started playing Guilt, which it sounds like it will be ported to um, PC, PS5, Xbox, all that fun stuff at some point this year. I think they said, and that's kind of like a survival horror kind of game.
Okay.
Um, kind of like a cartoony survival horror. Apparently, it only takes like 5 or 6 hours to play. So I might play that. It's been kind of filling. It's very like stealth based. Like, it's not combat at all. You can basically only like punch to stun monsters that see you, so you can then run and hide from them. But it's got a lot of mechanics that are from like stealth video games, so I'm kind of itching that scratch right now with this game.
You're itching that
But
scratch.
yeah,
Po buddy's
all these
nerfect.
huh?
I said Po buddy's nerfect. Wouldn't you be scratching that itch?
I don't know, dude. I just had COVID for a week.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I literally,
No, I'm
I
a dick.
literally said it. I literally said it the right way in my head and said that's wrong, and then said it the way that I said it.
Yeah. No, I'm just a dick. That was uncalled for. I'm really sorry.
No, it's not uncalled for. You are a dick, but it's not uncalled for.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know. Like, do you ever get scratches on your arm and they get itchy? Like,
Sure.
Jesus.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
I
So
do
you
have a
itched to
cat,
scratch.
so
Yeah. Yep. Gas scratch fever. There you
yeah.
go.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, well, that was it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All I played this week.
I'm sorry. Okay. Well, much like you being up against a bit of a clock in terms of trying to play some Stadia games or play games on Stadia, I too am up against the clock of games that
Don't
are
don't you
leaving.
don't you dare compare your strife to mine.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of the same.
No, it's not.
I mean, the games that I'm playing will still be there if I don't finish them, but
Mhm.
um no, but I've been continuing to try and play through games that are leaving PlayStation Plus, and I talked about it last week. I was playing a game called Bound by Flame, which is like this RPG, and would have never played it had it not been, like leaving the service. Um, Played it, beat it, um, played through it again, and got the platinum, and it was a lot of fun actually. Kind of a just like a nifty little gem that definitely showed its age at times, but no, it was fun. And then there's two other games that I was originally thinking that I was going to try and get through. The one I never even started, just because like from everything I was seeing was that it was going to take like 70 hours or something like that, and I just wasn't that dedicated to it. The other one was this game called Masters of Anima, and I don't even know how to describe it, but I was playing it first. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun. I can get into this. And then kind of hit a wall in a boss fight. And I was just like, it's just not worth it. I don't care. And so I quit out, and I have a week, but I don't think I'm going to pick it back up. But it's just nice. It's cool that like doing this, I at least get to try these games that otherwise I wouldn't have. Um, and get to experience some different things. Um, so that was a bit of my time. And then Fallout 76 was one of the free games this month for like the three free games that you get every month for PlayStation Plus.
Mm,
Um, so Shelby and I loaded that up with our friend Brock, and it's it's pretty fun. It's I didn't play it at launch when it had a lot of flack, and people said that it was like broken and just a mess. So I never experienced that, and so for me, it just for the most part feels like a Fallout game. You know, I'll say Fallout light. It's not like perfect, but obviously like it has to be different because of like the MMO aspect of it. It's definitely a game though that like I just don't have I just don't have the desire to play a Fallout right now, or a Skyrim, or uh like a Cyberpunk. Like I just don't really have that desire in me right now. I mean, I've been chipping away at The Witcher, and The Witcher is one of my favorite games, and I just like for the life of me just can't like get to the point where I'm like full on in. So it's really nice that with Fallout 76, it's like I'm playing it with other people. So it's just very easy, mindless to just like run around, do the missions and stuff like that. And like more so use it as like a method of like just hanging out basically instead of actually like trying to get like a ton out of it. But overall, that's been pretty fun. And then the last game that I've been playing that I think you're going to love is it was added to the PlayStation Plus catalog um, early January. Um, WWE 2K22.
amazing.
So I remember I was on the store the one day, and this was before it was like when you could pre-order the game, and I saw Rey Mysterio was the like cover athlete for it, and I was like, do I have to get this game just because Rey Mysterio? For those of you that don't know, used to love wrestling, and Rey Mysterio is my favorite wrestler. So I was like, all the nostalgia started coming back to me, and I was just like, oh my god, maybe I'll get it. And then I was just like, I don't need to pay fucking $70 for a goddamn wrestling game. I'm not getting it, especially because 2K20 I think was the last one, and that was like a mess. Apparently, all this stuff they didn't release one last year, so this one was supposed to be better and everything. But I was just like, no, I don't need to do that. So ultimately I didn't. And then I saw it was coming to PlayStation Plus, and I was like, hell yes, this is why this is why Game Pass, this is why these services are so GD amazing. Because you get gems like this. And so I've been playing that. I've been sinking so much goddamn time into it. Um,
Really?
yeah,
Is it
dude.
actually like
It's
so there have been a handful of WWE 2K games on like games for gold.
hmm
And I tried, God, I don't even remember the last one I tried. It was recently. And it was so bad,
hmm
unplayable.
I feel like that's like the trajectory that they were going, and I think they just like revamped with this one. But then again, like I haven't played a wrestling game in God, like over 10 years.
Mhm.
But it like I don't know, like for me it just feels like the old wrestling games we used to play.
Really?
Yeah, like for the most part, I feel like it's fairly clean too. I would say. So
I wonder if it's on Game Pass.
but I've literally been
Sorry, Stadia.
sinking so much time into it, like a stupid amount of time, um, and yeah, I'm just getting hit with like the waves of nostalgia. I'm just I'm sitting there playing it, and then so there's like a whole like showcase for Rey Mysterio's career. So you're like playing like his like biggest matches and stuff like that.
That's cool.
And so like as like you're going into a match, I'm like telling Shelby, I'm like, oh my god, that's Eddie Guerrero, and like I'm like going into all that. I'm like, yeah, he like ended up dying, which was like crazy, and like it was, and Shelby's just sitting there like, uh huh. And then like I think Dave Batista, there's a match against Batista, and Shelby was like the
Drax.
yeah, she's like the DiCaprio thing. She's like, mm. I was like, yeah. I was like, and it was funny. I was just like, yeah, there's a reason why like him and The Rock and Cena were able to like make a jump over to like actual acting because they were like good in ring actors.
Right.
It's been a blast. It's been such a like a nostalgia drive. I've just been loving it. It's just been so much fun.
Yeah, I'll have to see once it comes on a service. Did it only come out for PS5 on PlayStation Plus, or was it on PS4 as well?
It's actually the PS4 version of it
Oh.
on PS Plus.
Oh, maybe I'll
But it's on
is
like
that
the
just with the Go ahead.
yeah, I think I'm about to answer what you were about to ask. It's
Yeah.
on like the extra tier. So like the
Never mind
middle,
then.
yeah, the middle tier. So, yeah, I
Well,
know.
that's fine. I've I have been excited for the AEW game that's going to come out.
Yeah.
Not because I really pay attention to AEW, but they have a lot of like wrestlers that we used to watch when we were younger on it.
Mhm.
And it's being made by like THQ and Ukes.
Yeah,
So
I
the
yep.
exact same people that made like SmackDown versus Raw.
Yep. I just saw I had seen that they were making a game, and then I also just saw I think London, who we had on the show, was tagging your brother in a Twitter post about the game. Um, so yeah, it's just good fun, just good fun. Plays well, and it's just one of those like it's like any other sports game. Basically, you can just kind of have like turn your mind off and just punch
Beat the crap out
people
of
and
somebody.
hit them with a chair. And as God as my witness, he's broken in half. So on and so
Go.
forth. um, but yeah, that's where I've been sinking my time. Um, yeah, let's get into the fun stories from the week. So first up, we've got Sony at CES. They had some um, cool things that they showed off. Specifically, I would say this was the coolest part was the new electric car that they were working with Honda. Now, although it did look pretty slick. No, the Project Leonardo, which is their new accessibility controller kit for PS5. Um, I think uh, a lot of credit needs to go to Xbox for their accessibility controller that they had made. Um, because without, one taking the leap, you just don't know if the other would, right? And so I think it was one of those things that like once they did it, like Sony kind of like had to do something, right? And like as a whole for games, for the community, for people in general, like this is a huge win. Um, so I thought that was really, really cool to see them announce it. There's really no details like beyond them just like kind of announcing it. But I that was the main thing that I saw that I was very much one like just surprised and two thought was just really cool.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. Um, I don't want to be too negative about it because like about Sony's announcement of this, not of the product. But like there's just a part of me that like back when Microsoft announced their accessible controller, Jack Ryan was just like, for fuck's sake.
Right.
Um, but and I say that because it seems like they really thought this through, and they worked with Able Gamers and, a couple other organizations. I think Stack Up was one. Um, but, I mean, I know Spawn was tweeting about it after it came out because, of course, everybody was tweeting at him when it was announced, and he does I don't know if he's, like, a founder of Able Gamers, but he's very heavily involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was apparently on the design team, on the test team, that kind of stuff. Um, so it was cool to see Sony go out and interact with these different organizations to see like what is actually going to work. Because Sony could design stuff all day, but if you don't have that experience of needing some sort of um, altercation to a controller to play a game, then how are you supposed to know what's needed?
Right.
Um, Really cool. Um, I'm excited for that to come out. I saw a lot of people online make some good points that were like, good. Now, each of these companies has accessible controllers out that both have, you know, good things about them.
Mm-hmm.
Unlock them so they can be used on either platform.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, or, hopefully at the very least if, my hope is that Xbox was first to like market with it, right? My hope is that Sony's, you know, takes was able to learn from Xboxes and is, more innovative, better, buzzwords. Xbox then can in turn think about how to retool, how to make it better. But at the end of the day, I mean, unlocking it is would be best because obviously everybody's going to have their own, preferences or what's like comfortable. Just like, uh, you know, the Dual Sense versus the Series X controller.
Yeah, and
So
it it seems, I don't know, without having seen a whole lot about the PlayStation 1, I mean, it seems like the Xbox One is a little more open to what you can, like, plug into it. And kind of the example in my head is, like, somebody who's in, a wheelchair. And I don't know if you've seen like anybody's setups with these things, but there are some pretty cool ones where they integrate it straight into their wheelchair. I mean, the accessible controller for Xbox has like specific hardware to mount to like a standard mount for a wheelchair. I don't know the details of it, but um it seems to me like that would be better in that kind of situation. And again, not going to sit here and pretend like I know what would be better, but just from an observation, than
Hmm.
like the PlayStation one, because the PlayStation one seems like it just had to be like put on some sort of platform, like a table or something.
Right.
Um, so that's why, I mean, I think that would be good. Um, it seems like the PlayStation one is more like ready to customize out of the box for
Hmm.
certain people. Like there's obviously more buttons there. The Xbox One, I think, is basically just like a D-pad and like two larger buttons, and then you can of course plug in whatever peripherals you need. So again, I mean, it would just give more people more options. If you don't need this big intricate setup and you just need a controller that you can customize kind of just in one package, then the PlayStation One's probably a lot better than having to have to get the Xbox One, get all the peripherals, and try to put that together somehow.
Right.
But from like what I could see, I don't know how you could use the PlayStation One in like a wheelchair setup.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah,
regardless,
I
still
thought
really
that was
cool.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be like too surprised like in retrospect because Sony's worked a ton with a ton of different groups in getting accessibility features really upped. I mean, I think that's, when you actually think about it, why The Last of Us Part 1 is such like an important remake in a lot of ways, because the accessibility features that were there for Last of Us Part 2 were certainly not there when the original Last of Us released. So, you're missing out on like you're basically gatekeeping so many people from, being able to experience that first story, themselves.
Mhm.
So I think like that shows, and then just again in all of the games that have been releasing here of late, just a ton of like, yeah, I mean, I forget how many different features there were for God of War, but uh Steve Sailor, I think, is, if I'm remembering correctly, the blind gamer. Um he I remember he posted like a whole video like going over like in gruesome detail like all of the grueling intense detail.
See, I
um,
don't correct you, idiot.
um, and so that's already something that they've been like focusing a lot on. But yeah, I just, color me shocked. I was not expecting a controller to be revealed. Um, I also talked about some other stuff. They talked about this was actually kind of surprising. Jim Ryan announced that PlayStation 5 has passed 30 million units sold. Not something that I would have thought they would have gotten into, especially, given
Mhm.
the whole arguments about
They
why
suck.
yeah, exactly, why Call of Duty, or why Microsoft shouldn't get Call of Duty. I'm not even going to talk about why Microsoft shouldn't get Activision Blizzard because, again, like we discussed last week, that's not the argument anymore. The argument is simply about Call of Duty, regardless of whatever anybody wants you to believe. Um, so I thought that was a bit surprising. They also went into PSVR 2. I couldn't remember if they had announced this already, but 30 titles are going to be available for PSVR 2 day
What?
one.
Okay. I have What does that mean?
Yeah. So I was going to ask you that too. Does that mean like, uh, help me out here, like Job Simulator, right?
Yeah,
Like, okay, but that was on PSVR. Or are these
right.
strictly like new titles that are like coming to PSVR 2. I think there's overlap. I think there are games that um were on the PSVR that are also getting like a PSVR 2, because that was like a whole thing that we talked about where like games are not going to be PSVR games are not going to be compatible with PSVR 2, right?
Correct.
So then it's going to beg the question of, okay, like whatever, you can, you know, yeah, again, I don't know how to make a console, so I'm just going to trust that there's some impossibility to getting every single game just bare bones playable at the very least on PSVR 2. But it'll be interesting to see how they handle the games, like No Man's Sky, right? Like, does No Man's Sky have a separate standalone for VR? Um, or is it just the game and you can like it has like VR capabilities if you like plug in the VR? Do you know how those work?
I'm sorry, like with No Man's Sky. So the disc that I bought when that game came out, before PSVR was even a twinkle in Jim Ryan's eye, um, I can use that disc and play it in VR.
Okay.
But, you know, can I take my PS4, and I'm taking PSVR out of the equation for this question. Can I play my PS4 No Man's Sky disc on a PS5 and have it be like the PS5 upgraded version?
Right. That's what's going to be curious is
Right.
if it's just a seamless, yeah, plug and play, or is there going to be a $10 unlock fee, or are you just going to have to flat out buy the game
The amount I wish you
again?
and I could have like watched this live together because the amount of shit I said under my breath during this whole thing. Um, yeah, they were. I want to go back to them touting 30 games at launch. Like, of course, some of that I think like whatever the Horizon
Yeah.
Zero
Call
Dawn game is.
Call of the Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, like obviously that's one. Okay, they specifically were touting Beat Saber uh, for PSVR 2, and they said yes, this will be there. But yeah, how many of those 30 games? Because I probably have at least 30 games for PSVR, the original. Like, how many of those games are going to be on PSVR 2, and how many of them am I going to have to pay for a second time? The answer is
Right.
zero because fuck the PSVR 2. But I say that, and we'll check in a year from now.
Marking it on my calendar.
Hmm. Um, yeah, like I don't want to buy Beat Saber again. And Justine was there. Justine was sitting with me at that point, and I was like, "We've got like every music pack for Beat Saber." So not only did we buy the game, we probably have $100 into that
You
game.
funded Beat Saber 2 all by yourselves.
Yes, and now I won't even won't even get it because there won't be a Beat Saber 2. I mean, it'll just be like I don't know if live service is the right word, but they'll keep releasing new packs.
Yeah. No, I know it. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't like really looked a ton to try and find like a comprehensive 30, like find a comprehensive list of the 30. Um, long story short, our answer is that on February 22nd, we'll find out what the upgrade path looks like. Um, Free, small fee, full price. Those are the only options. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, um, it will be interesting.
And it's funny to bring up again, friend of the show, London. He actually he texted me, I want to say the day after CES, and told me to tell him not to pre-order the PSVR 2. And I said it is tough, though. I mean, the way he's looking at it is that like, so he and you are obviously in two very different I can understand why you are a flat out no, because for you to get it, you also need to get a PS5.
Mhm.
That's a very like high price to pay. 100% like understand. Um, but he was pointing out like he does already have a PS5, so he was like playing the game of like it's not like as much like all at once, and it's like yeah, that makes it tough. I
If
Go ahead.
if I had bought the PS5 at launch, I would be pre-ordering the PSVR 2.
Right.
I think it's going to be really good. Despite everything I say, I think it's going to be probably the best VR platform out in terms of, they talked a lot about live service stuff with VR
Hmm.
at CES, sporting events, metaverse, if you want to call it that. And then, on top of that, you have the games. Uh, so yeah, I think if I had had a PS5 for 2 going on 3 years, absolutely no brainer, would pre-order it.
Yeah. I personally, the boat that I'm in is that I feel like I'm still too close to the PS5 coming out. I'm so too close to that purchase that I want to give it a year, make sure I see enough games come out that I'm like, I can check a list and say, yep, I'll check it twice. And then, you know, decide from there. And then at that point, like make the decision. And hopefully at that point, maybe I can pick one up at a somewhat discounted price. But
Mhm.
if not, it's easier to swallow at that point after, I've distanced myself from the PS5, but I don't want to distance myself too far because, you know, when the PS6 inevitably comes out, my PSVR may be, null and void at that point. Or
Or you
well,
get
you
into the
can still
loop
use
of
it, but you can't, PSVR 3 is coming out and, it's dead in the water.
right, or is Sony gonna do the same shit where they did last generation where they come out with a pro version
Right.
and VR is better?
Right. So, we'll see. Last thing from Sony at CES, game adjacent. They gave a sneak peek for the Gran Turismo movie, and it's a bit much. All of these Sony properties getting like movies, shows, and stuff like that. But I have to be honest, I'm really excited. I'm really excited that like they're all in on it. Would love to see. I know Xbox did Halo, obviously. But would just love to see like, you know what? Let's go for it. It's been long enough that we've like distanced ourselves from some bad video game adaptations. Let's see what we can make happen. And I think like overall, I want to say most recent adaptations have been received really well. It'll be interesting to see how The Last of Us goes. That comes out in, as of recording, I think less than a week. Um, we'll see how that is. We obviously know how like Uncharted was, so that's like your live action. Then you get like the Mario, and then you also get these animes that have been like really really like well touted. So it seems like the right time to like really go for it, and I'm here for it. I'm excited. Uh, I will say though, a Gran Turismo movie, I don't really understand what the underlying story of Gran Turismo is, so I think this is one for my dad. Put it that way.
I don't know that there really is an underlying story in
Uh,
Gran Turismo, like, I think it's just a racing sim.
no, I know. So I'm like, what's the like? What's the movie?
It's apparently a kid who is a Gran Turismo player who then goes on to become an actual racer,
Perfect.
and apparently it's based on a true story.
Perfect. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of like all these adaptations we're getting?
I actually saw a really good, um, interaction on Twitter. Not good, like wholesome, because it's still
It's
Twitter,
Twitter.
but yeah. But about The Last of Us HBO, and some people were like, "Why couldn't you do an original story?" Or like, "Will you ever do an original story?" And I don't remember if it was Neil Druckmann or
I think
somebody
it
else
was.
from. Was it?
Yeah.
So they were like, "Well, we're just trying to like the story is already good. We are trying to get it into more people's eyeballs."
Yeah. Yeah, no
Um,
joke. Shelby and I had a game night with a couple of my coworkers, or well, it was my coworker and her husband. And um we were like we got talking about like shows and stuff, and no joke, the husband says to me, he goes, "Oh, did you see that new HBO show that's coming out? It's like apocalyptic." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's like it's called The Last of Us." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "It looks sick." I was like, "It's literally my favorite video game. Like it's based on my favorite video game." And he had no idea. Never knew that it was a video game or anything like that.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and I was just like, yeah, so like that's perfect. There's so many people like it's so when you are always surrounded by gaming, it's so easy to think that like this is dumb, this is pointless. But like what, the Last of Us series as a whole across the 3 games have sold 30 million?
3 games?
Yeah, Last of Us 4, I guess, with the remastered.
Oh, are you counting all the remakes and
Yeah, I
remasters
think
and stuff?
I think it's across all iterations of The Last of Us, I think as a whole, so 4 games, I think have sold like 30 million or something like that. I think it just crossed that threshold or is closing in on it or something. Like that's not like I'll say that's not like amazing, right? I mean, and this is like highly touted as like one of the best stories in games, right? Like
Mhm.
so many people say that like it's unmatched, whether it's the first one, whether it's the second one. People have their gripes and everything like that. Um, but again, like that's people who had hands on and played it. Um, and then yeah, there's just so many people who like have no clue. So if anything, I think like I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie, that the show could end up being better than the game.
In what regard?
Like, just, like, like, overall, like, dialogue and, like, stuff that, like, the interactions of the characters that can actually happen on screen that, like, maybe were difficult to have happen in game. And also I think, like, parts of storylines might be able to be, like, get a little more fleshed out and a little more, like you might be able to get a little more out of, like, certain scenes with it being, like, real.
Mhm.
Um and it'll just be interesting. But I wondered if they were gonna like deviate from the story, and I think like again, I think there's gonna be like some things that they can do, but the fact that they like no, like we know how season one, or I'm assuming season one's gonna be the entire first game. I could be wrong about that, but like if it is, we know how season one's going to end, and I'm totally on board with that. So, but I'm truly very interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is gonna be kind of a groundbreaking, event, I guess I'll call it, for adaptations.
Yeah, again, I think like hopefully it's received really well, and then hopefully it drives you know more IPs to kind of like make that jump. I mean, I'm totally down with it just being a faithful retelling. I'm totally down with it just using the world simply, whatever. But
I think it already has I think critics could post reviews starting today.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I would tell you. There we go. I thought I started seeing that Rotten Tomatoes could start posting. Yeah. Right now, it's sitting at a 96%.
That's nuts.
I forget what I saw earlier, but yeah, it is very, very well reviewed so far.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, I'm looking
It
forward
was
to
up
it.
to 29 critics at one point and still at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's nuts.
Now it's at 56 and it's only down to 96%.
That's awesome. Yeah, and also actually in some other Last of Us news, uh Druckmann was also itching that scratch for
Yeah, he
the
was.
for the rumors of potentially a Last of Us 3. So um I think I saw one thing that was saying that like it was being developed, and then but his most recent thing didn't confirm that, but he did say that like there's definitely more story. He feels like there's more story to be told, or that can be told. So, man, leave it or continue it. Either way, I'll be happy. But I would totally be down with getting some more in Last of Us. Truly, just
Oh
love
yeah.
those games so freaking much. Okay,
Yeah, that would be an immediate PS5 move for me.
yeah. What else? What Splinter Cell exclusive to PS5? Would that be an immediate
Yeah,
PS5?
yeah.
Um,
Um, begrudging, but yeah. I really thought PSVR 2 would be though, so I guess we'll see.
well, I mean, Splinter Cell's not going to be $550. Hopefully.
Hey, I wouldn't put it past this franchise.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, enough.
If Martin
Sucking.
Shkreli has anything to say about it.
I don't want people to be misconstrued and think that we are Sony ponies with this episode. So let's equally share some love with Microsoft. So, um, Microsoft has had, I would say, their year is off to a pretty good start in a maybe somewhat minor way, we'll say. Um, but I think if I were to give predictions, I think this is going to be a really big and good year for Xbox. So fingers crossed. Um, but it was announced, through their just like typical, games that are coming to Game Pass soon. Which I think we knew about Persona 3 and Persona 4 already, that they were going to, when they released, they were going to immediately be put on Game Pass. But I didn't know about Monster Hunter Rise, which was a Switch game and is now coming over to the other consoles. Something that you don't see very often. Normally, it's the other way around. Um, but both Persona games and Monster Hunter. And I know Game Pass will sometimes be in one of these announcements, they'll say 10 games, they'll say 15 games, they'll say 20 games across, ones that are coming to Xbox and then ones that are going to only be on PC Game Pass, whatever. So maybe from a volume standpoint, you might be saying, whatever, it's just 3 games. I think this speaks volumes to what it is that they're trying to do. I think them getting Persona 5 Royale and immediately putting it on Game Pass spoke volumes as well. I think they are really, really, really trying to appeal more to a Japanese audience, something that I feel like Microsoft has notoriously not been very good at. And I think by putting 3 games like this on the service, they're doing fans of JRPGs and just your, say, Japanese players a great service by getting these games into their hands via the best value in gaming. Um, I think this is huge, right? I think it speaks volumes. But then also in Tom Warren's post, he says Microsoft says, "quote We're just getting warmed up, and we'll be back soon with more games." So like this is just apparently the start of what's going to be coming to Game Pass. And this is a really, really strong start, I'd say.
Yeah, I think Game Pass is kind of getting into. I think this will be a weird year for it. And I say that I don't know if it was today that I saw it, but um, We Happy Few, which I think is an Xbox published game made by Gearbox, maybe, is leaving Game Pass. Um, it sounds like maybe it'll be coming back. It just had to do with a licensing issue. I don't know if all the details are out there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it'll be interesting in general to go back to JRPGs. It is, it's again, the from Microsoft's standpoint, the perfect reason to have this platform
Yeah.
because, they're still losing in Japan, though the numbers over the past couple of years have increased, I think for the first time ever. And I think maybe it was 2022 or 2021 was the first year that they started gaining a market cap in Japan.
Yeah, and I think recently in a certain month they beat out PlayStation and Nintendo. They were the top selling console for a month.
Right.
Says
And
a lot. I mean, truly.
that I think correlates to their commitment to JRPGs and Japanese games. You know, we think in, America and most of Europe that Game Pass is this amazing deal, and in Japan they're probably not even talking about it. Now, well, historically, now they might be.
Right.
I'm not insinuating that this is all Japanese players play, but we have the data is out there for trends in games that Japanese players play, and it is games like these, like Persona and Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I mean these are I mean literally it's called a JRPG, right? Like these are
Right,
huge in Japan and with that base, right? So many games start there and are in created there and sometimes don't make the initial jump until like 2 or 3 after like a strong showing, or sometimes you have just solo releases over there. You know it shows like just how crazy these are, just with again a very specific base.
right. Um, yeah, it's exciting, and I think we've talked about it tons of times. Like this is what makes this service perfect for me personally because it's just not something I've historically been into. So it's
Right.
cool that it can share like bring in these games that mean so much to a group of people, but also like introduce more people to it.
Yeah, it means so much to your co-host.
Yeah. God.
Thank you.
No.
Or oh, okay. um no, so I saw this and I was like, wow, this is great. Now this is coupled with um rumors that are now I think substantiated that Microsoft is gearing up to do an Xbox showcase um in 2 weeks on according to GameSpot January 25th. Um So both of those, I'm like, all right, I'm getting excited. But before we talk about this showcase, Brad Sams also tweeted a screenshot of the with the URL of the Game Pass announcement, and it specifically says Wave One announce. So that coupled with what Tom Warren said, I'm assuming I didn't read the actual announcement. I normally just look at the pretty pictures on Twitter. Um, so I'm guessing within the actual like press release, we're just getting warmed up and we'll be back soon with more games. Like, I just maybe getting like a little overhyped. I'm just assuming that it's gonna be something big. They're gonna drop a big hammer um, with some other key releases. um, which I think is great. I also love that they're taking a very Marvel approach with the whole, waves, phases, stuff like that. So, um, but I love it. Drum up some excitement, right? Like, why show all 20 at once? Really, really edge us.
Yeah, that's how you get people ripping through these games because you never know how much time you're going to lose when they release the next year.
Hmm. But yeah, so I look forward to that. But I'm also very interested in this supposed Xbox showcase that is going to be coming in 2 weeks. Um, it was announced that Starfield will not be at this event, or will not be shown at all.
That's what I
Um,
saw.
which is interesting because that is slated for that's is that February that's supposed to come out already?
Starfield?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think so, but what do I know?
Or was it like originally like supposed to be last February and then it got pushed to November 11th?
I didn't think it had a day in
Okay.
2023
I
yet.
might just be mixing it up with something else then. Regardless, it is supposed to release early 2023.
Right,
Um
first half, I think, is all we know.
okay. So kind of interesting with that being probably the big headliner of Xbox releases this year. Um but either way, I think there's still a really good opportunity here for them to showcase some other stuff like Redfall.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I don't want to get too into like predicting and trying to like key in on like specific things, but you know, I'm sure the there's a new Forza that's slated for this year, right? Motorsport.
Yep, yeah, that'll come out this year, so they'll probably show some gameplay of that,
So right. So
which
like
is exciting.
exactly. But I'm also just looking forward to how so any games that they show that are like being made by them, right? Instant value up for Game Pass. Um I'm also just interested to see like what else they say because I just feel like that they're gonna announce other massive games, massive gets for Game Pass, um, that we can like look forward to later this year.
Well,
Um,
yeah, they'll probably announce some stuff that's gonna come to Game Pass, but we're still missing a bunch of updates from games that they announced 2 years ago, like Indiana Jones
Indiana
and
Jones is being
Perfect
made.
Dark.
Indiana Jones is being made. Perfect Dark, maybe. Indiana Jones is being made by Bethesda, though, right?
Yeah.
My guess is that we wouldn't see more about that because didn't they did a Bethesda Xbox and Bethesda showcase like last summer, right?
I believe so. I believe that's when they came out with Redfall.
So I'm almost thinking. I mean, Arcane's under Bethesda though, so yeah,
Right, and
yeah,
and Indiana Jones is gonna be Machine Games, and as far as I know, there's no new Wolfenstein game.
yeah. So we could potentially look forward to seeing something about that. Yeah, I think there's plenty for them to show, and I think there's plenty um, to be prepared to find out some fresh release dates or release windows at the very least that fall into either this year or certainly next year. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, this is it. Like I'm hoping that this is like the ramp up into it that we've kind of been so like itching for from Microsoft. Um But yeah,
Trying to see if I really want to find the list from whatever that showcase was. I think it was in January of 2022 or sorry, 2021. What Microsoft announced. Yeah, I mean, regardless, we'll take what we can get.
yeah, we could potentially get some information on Kojima's game with them, right?
Hopefully.
That'd be
I
sick.
I'm so like, is Kojima going to be able to work on that IP and also Death Stranding too?
Sure, why not? And I wouldn't doubt him.
I don't know how big his team is or how many clones he has.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 14 Kojimas now in the world.
Okay.
Total aside, I saw a fucking hard picture, black and white. It was Keanu, Norman Reedus, um, Mads Mikkelsen, and Kojima all just sitting. Again, pictures black and white, and they're all just sitting smoking cigarettes. And it is the hardest picture I've ever seen. Like it was so fucking cool. I was just like, like, this is awesome. Like, it was so sick. Total aside, but he's such a rock star that yeah, um, I wouldn't put it past him to be able to.
Um,
I'm interested to see if his IP with Xbox is going to be just as you know what the fucky as Death Stranding is.
yeah, I and just from a technology standpoint, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be kind of groundbreaking on that front as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because they're going to be using, I'm guessing, Azure services to build certain things into this game. Um, yeah, it'll be really cool. Yeah, I'm sure Kojima probably has built a relatively big team. I mean, it's not like he's the. I mean, obviously he wants his vision to be what comes out on screen, but he reminds me of the kind of person that trusts people to do well by him.
Right.
Do well by his ideas, I should say. Okay, so I found the list from 2021. I'm gonna throw a couple games out there that we haven't gotten updates on in
Okay.
a while. Stalker 2.
Yep.
Um,
Which why do I feel like an Xbox person just recently said something about that game?
I think that game is getting really close. I think the that was supposed to come out in April of last year, but then obviously um, they're a Ukrainian team, so they kind of got displaced.
Mm-hmm.
They might have had an announcement for that recently. I know their account was just active with something. Um, did Back for Blood already come out yet?
Uh, yes, yes. That's the game that came out that I thought was Redfall
Okay.
for whatever reason.
Contraband, which is from Avalanche. We've seen nothing from that since 2021. Let's scroll a little bit. Party Animals, I don't think has come out yet. Though I don't think that's an Xbox specific game.
Yeah, I think that was just shown at the Game Awards.
Yeah, it was. I think we're gonna get some like final details on Atomic Heart because we just saw a lot of that at the Game Awards as well.
Hmm.
But again, I don't think that's an Xbox specific game. I think it's just a day one release from Game Pass.
Right.
And now Games Radar's website is dead. So there's a couple games I would like to see at least updates on.
Yeah. And again, just I'm really looking forward to see how they continue to flesh out the whole Game Pass experience and catalog.
Yeah.
Because to your point, I mean, it gives them the opportunity to just especially like highlight some games that typically get missed. We talk about how great it is for indies and putting them in the spotlight. But I think it can work for specific genres as well to get them out to people who would normally just look the other way and not think twice about one of those games. So I think by putting it in the spotlight of this is coming, like this is coming to the service, be excited. It gets people to like take that leap at no additional cost to them to be able to try it and potentially find a new love for a genre or series or whatever. So that's why I think there's so much value in all of these services because it just gets more games into people's hands that they would have otherwise missed out on. Um, and at the end of the day, I think that's good.
Yep.
And they've been killing it, and they've been providing some just great games. Can't tell you how often I am so jealous of uh, what's being added to Game Pass. On top of the
Easy
fact that
solution
you
to that.
also get what's that?
Said easy solution to that.
Yeah, yes sir, yes sir. There is sooner rather than later. We'll see. Maybe that'll be my apartment warming gift to myself when we move.
There you go. That'll do.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, so that'll be in 2 weeks. It looks like. So we will. I guess we'll have to make sure we do good that week and we talk on we record on the 25th after the showcase, huh?
Yeah, I
That
guess
way,
we should. What day is that on?
that's a Wednesday.
Uh, Perfect.
Cool.
Because
Oh,
we'll talk about it after the podcast because it doesn't matter.
okay. Well, it does matter, but I guess maybe just not to our listeners, huh?
To our listeners, I think the only thing that matters to them is to expect a pretty timely episode
Let's
related to that.
go. Look at us. Well, anything else to pat Microsoft on the back for?
Oh, probably. Um,
I mean, what do
but
you
no,
think? Do you think this is like? Are you excited? Do you think like this has the feelings of a really good year for Microsoft? I think so.
I think so too. And it's funny because you can still like you can Google Xbox Showcase January, and people are still like, yeah, Xbox has Starfall, or yeah, Starfall, Redfall,
Starfield,
Starfield.
Redfall.
um, but PlayStation's still gonna win this year, and it's just so funny, like, and it goes both ways until like December 31st of whatever year, and you can actually look back and see who won.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited. I think Xbox has been patient, um, and they understand that people are ready to see some games.
yeah. I always think it's so funny that people feel the need to like be so validated in a purchase that they made that they need to like remind you why their purchase was so good.
Mhm.
Very silly to me. Doesn't really like. I mean, I want to believe that I made a good purchase in the PS5, and I think I did. Regardless of that, I think there's some great things that Microsoft is doing. There's some things I'm very jealous of. So,
Yeah.
and you can see that and still know that you spent $400 wisely, I guess. Well, that's because I got a dickless one. If you got one with a disk drive, it's $500. Regardless, um, silly gamers. You know what else can be said?
A feel of these nuts.
Did I what?
You said what else could be said? So I said a feel of these nuts. 'Cause that's the name of the joint venture with Sony and Honda,
Yeah.
and I've just been sitting on it, and I just had to get it out there.
Does it feel good?
Did it feel as good?
Okay. All right. Fuck you. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode then. So, as always, thank you all so much for listening to this point. Really appreciate it. As always, if you could leave us a rating or review. Just a quick reminder here at the end, we do now have a YouTube channel, so you can feel free and find this episode over there. Leave us a little comment. What do you want to ask the listeners? What's your call to action uh, for for what we've talked about, or really just anything, like anything gaming related? That's you don't need to like try and force them to answer like the meaning of life or something like that.
But what if I did?
You could, I mean, just make it gaming related.
Um, how is everybody feeling about Xbox's year? It's kind of ambiguous and up for conversation, so I think it'd be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. So perfect. Let us know if you're so inclined. Let us know why you think it's going to be a good year. Why you're maybe like a little tepid on Microsoft, or why you think it's not their year. But we can engage in some friendly
Friendly
conversations. Yes,
keyword.
down below. But yeah, so you can find us there. Name of the channel
Or
is
find us here.
Good Game Bad
Right
Game
here.
Podcast, or wherever you're listening. Just keep listening to us there. Uh, be sure to share. Uh, that's also greatly appreciated. And as we begin 2023, we continue to look to be the number one podcast for mothers. So be sure to share with mom, and we'll talk to you next week.